Peace family, your boy Fozzie Neutron representing for BatDotOnline.com. Hope everybody's had a great weekend thus far. We definitely want to say peace to everybody who's been rocking with us. We got a guest joining us this week. We're going to be shooting the breeze on a few topics, a few things going on in the world, speaking on music, so on and so forth. So we're joined this week with Math, the concept. So what's good with you, brother?
I'm all right. Thank you for having me, Alfonso, on About That Online. Appreciate the opportunity.
No doubt, man. We appreciate you coming in and just taking the time to chop it up with us. As I aforementioned, there's quite a few topics that we can delve into and discuss. Just looking at things that are going on in the world. We do this segment DOA Diary of a Thai Black Man, where we also look at things that affect the diaspora and the community also, so we can have a bit of an expansive powwow with yourself. I mean, to kind of start off, I guess give a bit of an introduction to yourself, where you hail from, so on and so forth.
Okay, so well, I want to say thank you for giving me time on your platform. And I'll try and be as much as an aid to your listeners after the whole conversation when they hear everything. So, I'm Matt Concept. I'm a music producer. I was born in the United Kingdom in a small city called Stoke-on-Trent. It's between the two biggest cities of Manchester and Birmingham. However, I didn't grow up in Stoke-on-Trent. I was blessed. God blessed me with the opportunity with my parents to have raised me in the Middle East in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the 90s. I was born here and then I moved there. It was more so an educational move for my parents because there's at the time in the 90s and the 80s, a lot of things you had to experience. There wasn't really the internet. There was faxes and stuff like that. So for my father, who is a West African, Northern Nigerian, my mother, who is a Jamaican Brit, my father suggested to my mother, why not learn about Islam from the actual grounds rather than in the books. At the time, my mother was an educator in Staffordshire University. She was one of the only, if not the only, black teacher at that university at the time. My father had been a master's degree graduate at the time, and they had met at university. So that's the background of what's cultivated me. I later then, growing up in Saudi Arabia, meeting many different people from different backgrounds due to the opportunities my parents had being who they were. I, oddly enough, got into music in the country of Saudi Arabia, the home of Islam, Mecca, Medina, and all that. That's actually where my music journey started. But it didn't stop at music, and it didn't really start at music. I feel like, or I detect that music has become a catalyst and medium towards, or in the aspects of connecting people, especially from different backgrounds. Because one thing about music is it's a sensory thing. So it's we all, alhamdulillah, for those that have no deficiencies, we all have ears, eyes, we all have our five senses, and music is one of them. And music is one of the many branches of culture. And to be a Westerner that grew up in the Middle East, in this is a very interesting term for those in the U.S. when they call New York the Mecca, or the Big Apple the Mecca. It's because a lot of people from different backgrounds all go to the Big Apple, New York. And I'm actually in Mecca, like so you know what I mean. So I'm in the actual place, seeing all these different people from all around the world come to this one location, which isn't necessarily a financial one. Like being of African and of Caribbean background, a lot of people from my background take the journeys away from home so that they could bring back income and so on and so forth. Whereas when Saudi, a lot of the people that I saw from multiple backgrounds, Western or Third World, were not there for a financial reason. Some were, but a lot of them were not. A lot of that really made me a lot more adaptive to other people that were from different cultures, that were from different language spaces. Because the one identification that we all had is that we're not we're not here as Saudis because we're not Saudis. We're here because we all follow the lineage of what we see as the Abrahamic faith from all over the world. So my accent, even though I was born in Stoke-on-Trent, my accent is a mix of many different things because most of the kids that I grew up with, like if you ever saw did you ever grow up on a cartoon in the States called Louis? There was like a little fat white kid called Louis, and he lived in a neighborhood with all these different kids.
Oh yeah, we're familiar with Lou.
Yeah, it was like that for me growing up in Saudi. And to be fair, I watched a lot of those shows because Saudi Channel 2 would put a lot of these cartoons on. We used to watch Hammerman, we used to like see Bear and Jamal, Louis, Pow Wow, all these other things. So we had a mix of different English-speaking cultures presented to us on television via also newspapers and all the movies that were there because Saudi didn't really get colonized by the West. They had a friendship with the U.S., so they kind of just mirrored each other, having just different principles. One shrouded in, let's say, capitalism. The other one shrouded in, let's say, Islam and Quran and Sharia.
Yeah, I mean that's quite interesting. I mean we'll pick up on some of I guess the music direction as you say that developed, but I want to stick sort of around I guess the area of Saudi Arabia. I know recently, even as per recording this, there was a huge boxing bout that took place there yesterday, I believe, with Tyson Fury, and it's been in the press quite recently because I think a lot of people feel as though there's been a huge bid for bringing like sports and things like that out to Saudi Arabia. We've seen WWE wrestling, I believe they have soccer and other sort of I guess like you say Western sort of elements of sports. Now some people do have an issue or have cited that they feel this is to sort of reflect human rights violations that have always been attributed from the West towards the Middle East. Now you mentioned growing up in there, just it being a place like New York where a lot of people go from different backgrounds and stuff and around the world. I mean, I've never been out there myself. I've been to New York, so I mean, what I would find in New York, I would definitely agree. But in New York, I know predominantly you're gonna have, multi-faith people. Is that the same in Saudi Arabia? Or is it just? I'd be under the impression it would be just,
No,
predominantly Muslims.
Sorry. Let me continue. Add on to the question because I cut you off.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I was just saying, having not been out there, we do know obviously it's an Islamic country, as you said, like the capital in a lot of ways. So, growing up out there in that aspect, I know you said there was Western influence. We know that there's a lot of business backwards or forwards, but in terms of the climate there, is it just predominantly or solely Muslims? And what was that experience like?
Okay, so when you talk about the country, Saudi Arabia, when you say a Muslim country, we were talking about the residents that are actually from there. So we're not talking about the people that have traveled there, the expats and so on and so forth. So yes, it's a predominantly Muslim country. However, the experience that you have as a Muslim or speaking for some of my non-Muslim friends there, yeah, isn't one where it's overbearing you to fit within the customs of Islam. It's more so telling you, please follow the laws of the country the same way, like in England, if you have if a man is holding a police officer's hat, he can get arrested for that.
Yeah,
that's actually a law here.
You can't take a police officer's hat off his head and so on. Yep.
Yeah. Like there's a few other things. So there are those laws that happen to coincide with some aspects of Sharia law. So for an example, though let's say in England, you have to drink at a legal age. So let's say 18 to 21 and so on and so forth. In Saudi, the law is we don't trade alcohol in the country. It's illegal for you to possess that. It's almost like a narcotic now. Legally, it's considered a narcotic.
Okay.
So there's a difference there. So like it is a Muslim country, but what I've experienced, what I liked about Saudi is, for me, Alhamdulillah, with a lot of the abilities that I've had, I know that growing up in Saudi for me gave me a lot of limitations to things. It gave me time to, or it gave majority of us time to think things through without having vices to cover your inhibitions. It wasn't so easy to find those things. So we had to find alternative ways of having fun. This is why, for me, when I realized now at my age or for a while, the difference between my conduct and some people that have had access to vices at a very young age, they are easily inclined to go to a vice rather than handle a situation. This is not to say that everyone that has a vice doesn't handle a situation. I'm talking about the cultivation of thinking things through without having a distraction at a young age. Saudi really did that a lot. And the good thing about that was you had to put yourself in a sport to not be bored.
Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely good to keep productive. I just wanted to ask that because, as I said, I haven't been out there myself. And I think some people, even some of our listeners, may even be surprised in the aspect that it's not just Muslims out there because you would think, with that kind of landscape, it would be. And I know you said you had embarked out there to sort of further upon Islamic studies just from the sort of root base. So did you
Yeah,
study? Was
yeah.
it
Like
like?
for us, the for my particular family, and a reason, and I think a reason that other people should pick this up is one, my mother, the Dr. Marian Sadi, she said one thing. She said she wouldn't really live in the Middle East unless it was to live in Mecca, live near Mecca and Medina, which is a very interesting point because that is a direct thing as to the only reason why we as Africans, Caribbeans, wherever else in the world would go to a region that was once upon a time a derelict desert, yeah, is because of an external thing that we as human beings have a thing to worship. Now, a lot of people worship other things, but that is a core reason as to why some people are there. And that was a core reason as to why we were there. So for me, their whole thing for me was we want you to learn Arabic so that you can understand the Quran and then follow up on it. Because too many people, especially in the generations before us, have been lost in the distortion of translation, especially with the language of English.
Yeah, I mean, definitely language is important, especially how it's used and sometimes how it's misused. So we can see that, obviously being of that faith, it would make sense for you to, be well versed and knowledgeable in the language that it's presented in. I mean, one of the things, not to get slightly into a tangent when it comes to the area we now know is the Middle East, and obviously, as per recording this, we see a tremendous amount of tumultuous events happening out there right now. I mean, one of the things that people say, you mentioned coming from an African background and is a lot of people from the African continent, they feel as though this area called the Middle East is sort of like a misnomer or even just a resort of creation of new inhabitants in that land and stuff. Now I know a lot of people furnish to be original in certain aspects, and even we see now with some of the tensions happening in Israel and Gaza and the Palestine, and people fighting over land masses and stuff like that. So I mean, what are your thoughts on the Middle East, like somebody, as you say, coming from like an African background and stuff as well? What are your thoughts on the Middle East, even just as an area and its its inception, or people who claim to have rights to say, oh, we're from here, we're from there? Do you believe that masses are part of Africa, or do you think it's separate and more of an Arab part of the Arab world?
Well, here's the thing. You know how you said English is misused?
Yep.
English is also weaponized. And this is one thing that a lot of...
Well, let me just quote. I didn't say I said language, misuse, period. So not just English. I think any
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Sorry. My apologies. Yeah, all right. So,
I don't want our listeners to think I'm demonizing English.
No, it's fine. Here's the thing. saying I don't demonize English. I just say that English is used a lot by demons.
Touche.
That's what I would say.
Touche.
So, back to what I was saying. So, in the narrative of when I say English is weaponized, I'm going to say English is weaponized, especially when it comes to the narrative of the Arabs and the Middle East. Now, I'm going to give a little sub definition here.
Okay, I just want to pick
up. In
a
white narrative, an Arab, is an ethnic background. In the rest of the world's narrative, an Arab is a language. So therefore, an Arab is a semi the same like not the Ashkenazis in Israel now. Yeah, an actual Jew, or not a Jew, an actual Israelite, so on and so forth, is the brother of those people in the region of Hijaz, the peninsula. We call it the Arabian Peninsula, but Arabic and Hebrew are sister languages. They have the same root. So now when I say, okay, the Arabs, that's like saying the English, you know what I mean? Not the background, those who speak the language. Because the Arabs are not on one page together as Arabs. They themselves will say, hey, I'm the desert Arab and you're the Hijazi Arab and there's the Yemeni Arab. But they are not classifying themselves as a genetic background as Arab. They're talking about how they speak. So now when you say about the Middle East or the peninsula, the Arabian Peninsula, from my detection of history, Palestine is a part of Africa. From my detection of history, Palestine is a part of Africa, and on our Islamic accounts of black people, King Dawood, peace be upon him, and King Solomon are Africans. So now this is a big route into saying, okay, yes, there was a big move that the Israelites moved from Palestine or that region into Egypt and then into the Middle East, and then also into West Africa and other parts. So now, as an African, which is not a word that we made ourselves as Africans, you know what I mean? I say that the situation that is in the Middle East right now has become a geopolitical situation that, a particular sect or particular sections, of rich Arabs have taken upon themselves, and they've used the rules of of Islam and the Palestine being an important situation for them in the Middle East. It's a geopolitical situation. Now when I speak about the Africans or the Israelites or the people that have rootage towards there, yes, we have rootage towards there. No one can deny it. They can deny it on their platforms. However, what we do not have is a counter means where people are not only looking at, I don't like saying the term the white man's platform, but let's say into Western platforms. There's not enough unity between all of us on those things, for us to say, okay, we have a political stance. This is why I like though I don't subscribe to a lot of what Elijah Muhammad says in his own doctrine, I do like how the NOI and the FOI in the state of America have made an establishing body for those that are FBA in America, so that we'll be like, okay, we're here to defend you. You know what I mean? Because when you look at America, people look at America as the citizenship. They don't look at it continentally. So now this is why I tell people, when you say American, if you're Caribbean, you're an American islander, the same way a Madagascar person is an African islander. You need to claim the correct parts of your identity in order for us to move forward. So, at this geopolitical situation, as an African, you have to realize that this is a religious situation. These are people with different beliefs that have power, that want to implement something. Now, the issue is the ones that believe something and are willing to kill for it have more money to do it. Israel, America, so on and so forth. The ones that are there in the localities now, though they might be mixed backgrounds from many takeovers from Constantinople and all them other people from time ago, yeah, they're still human beings that shouldn't suffer for being there. It's like for an example, it's like when a lot of the Jamaicans move to England and they marry into English families. 6 generations later, you got pretty much a white kid. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. We definitely. I mean, we've went in extensively on this platform in the past when it comes to miseducation and just looking at different aspects of relationships and human dynamics and even just some say not liquidating or watering down your gene pool and genealogy and stuff because not to get too out there. Some people do feel as though a lot of the I say sub genes or subgenres of humans. It's kind of funny because we ain't looking at crayons in a box, but oftentimes we hear the popular term, black people, white people, red people, yellow people, brown people, and all this stuff. And then, I guess in between that, you start to have the different mixes. One thing I've definitely noticed when it comes to other groups, they have a strong sense of homogenous reproduction, and when it comes to that, it definitely can create its own sort of pool of people where we can say
Excuse my ignorance. Homogenous?
Yeah, homogenous. It's a soul think it's a soul replication with itself. So
okay. So they keep to themselves. They reproduce with themselves.
Yeah, I mean I mean we see this fundamentally happening around the world. I mean, as you say, we can say this group of people may have come about mixed from this way or that was they.
Yeah.
But
I understand.
ultimately they mix with themselves and I mean, you make some points. I'm definitely listening, paying attention. I don't know when you speak on just the language and stuff that we use, especially within English. We know that we're dealing with terrestrial terms that we're all kind of bound with. But when I was like mentioning the Middle East and because this come from a lot of people in Africa. Also, this ain't just like people in the West. I see a tremendous amount of people in Africa that feel
Can
as
I
though
add something to the about Africa and Arabic?
Let me let me finish up this point.
Sorry for cutting you off.
So a lot of them feel as though there is this racism, not just white supremacy, but also a supremacy being laden onto them from people within the Arab world and nations. So I know even though you say when you use the terminology Arab in this aspect it means this, or politically it might mean that, we know we have the United Arab Nations and stuff like that, which brings a lot of these nations and stuff together. But people within Africa, even in Israel and Palestine, recently we was on the Black Betterment broadcast. Shout out to Rap Raven. He did a tremendous show where he was looking at black people who currently live within both Palestine and Israel, and speaking on some of their experiences and how they're treated from local people just due to the color of their skin, just due to having a darker hue, or just being from what some would say is a different background, although some of them purportedly have the same religious faith and stuff. So it's an interesting one. Like I say, when we look at that area, as you said, it can be attributed to black Hebrews being there essentially, and so on and so forth. And not to get too much, I guess, into the political swing of what's happening out there, I just want to hear, I guess, from your experience, did you experience any of that kind of anti-black racism in your experience?
Oh yes. Oh, big man. I was a kid in school that I was I can tell you, out of 400 students, bro, there was probably like 5, 6 black kids. I'm telling you, like, when you hear them stories, like I went to 7 schools all my life, right? And my first school, it wasn't that bad. My second school was a private school in Saudi Arabia, and it was the worst experience I'd ever had as a person. However, there was a lot with struggle comes ease. When I tell you about not having any, I don't blame my parents. I actually see the struggle that people went through at that time. My generation of youth, the 90, 91, 92, 90, we didn't have a lot of knowledge about black empowerment. So, like for us, when we're going to school, for an example, and everyone in the class is Arab or so on and so forth, you get picked on because of your color of your skin. However, what we had learned is, as being African or what we would say black or so on and so forth, is that I know that I can hit you, but I'm not self-confident. I don't know how to love myself. So when this is a real experience for a lot of people. A lot of them, you grow up strong, yeah, but you don't grow up knowing how to love, especially your own self, or those that are like you. If you got, depending on what kind of heart you have, or those that are like you, yeah, especially if everyone around you doesn't look like you, but is only liking you for aspects that they can use from you, but you think that they like you, but they're only using the fact that, hey, everyone else doesn't like you because you black.
Mm.
Like, no, for real, it gets deep. Like, the reason why I became the way I became today, yeah, is because there was so much. Like, for me, as blessed as I was so strong and so smart, but I just didn't know certain things. If I knew certain things, I'd have been a monster worse than I was, worse than I became.
Yep. Yeah, no, I could concede that, and it's especially you think around the age and stuff you was out there, that brings to the next point, because as we know you would get into music and stuff. We know that you can't speak for everybody, but we do hear sometimes people within the community convert to Islam, and they say, I'm done. I'm throwing my music out. I'm never listening to music again. It's haram. I'm not entertaining any of that kind of stuff. So, with that being said, and especially you being based in Saudi Arabia and stuff, was there any opposition to you, getting into music? Did you feel it was something that you should?
Yes, there was. Obviously, there was. I'll tell you this.
Because I mean, as a black man, it could have been part of, something you felt inherent to your culture. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
See, I'll tell you this. In Saudi, yeah, there was a very how they formed the country. I would like to say was an amazing way, because they didn't necessarily have to entertain people to kill people. That's how the West did things. Fund this, we'll entertain y'all, and then we're gonna go kill people. The Arabs, yeah, they had oil, so they skipped the whole mafia-esque aspect to handle resolutions like they did with the boxing, like they did with casinos and all of that. They didn't need any of that. They already had the money. So for them, like what Mohammed bin Saud said recently, they're trying to make Saudi like Miami. But what do they mean? As in, it's a fun place. You see what I'm saying? So when we had entertainment, for an example, in Saudi Arabia, a good thing, not to make this any vulgar, a big reason why the porn industry in America and other places were big is because they were tax write-offs. You didn't need that in Saudi. Everything that they wanted in the Middle East was a genuine thing. There wasn't an aspect of criminality or carnality behind it to have it continue. It's a big reason why hip-hop has been really just, they weaponized hip-hop. It's not what it was at least in the 2000s. You see what I'm saying? People don't even know what a backpack rapper is now. Do you know what I mean? So in Saudi, there was entertainment. However, they didn't tell us as individuals, because they would have Saudi music, they would have other Arab-esque cultured music. They just frowned upon Western music, and there was a reason for that. It's because a lot of the things that they pushed in the West to Westerners was poison. So that's why they prevented a lot of things happening there and then, because they didn't know, hey, are they going to push poison the same way they push poison over there? For an example, the drug trade and alcohol and other means of vices are acceptable in the West. Yeah, so that's why, what was it, Colt 45? Yeah, Colt 45 had a very, very big big branding aspect in America, as is Old English. However, and you can see how that has and Ciroc and other things has aided into black culture in Western black culture. Even it's bled off into England right now, where I live. So in Saudi, they wanted to have an aspect of control. So when we started music, we already knew that some people won't like it. Yeah, and I'd already met an artist. I met him in my last year of going to Saudi. He was one of the first artists to get famous in Saudi and then get arrested just for the spreading of his music. At the time when Bluetooth was a thing, this guy would go into malls, he'd just find whoever's Bluetooth was on and he'd send his tracks out. To the point where he got famous. He got very famous. This is in like 2003, 2004. Yeah, so people were getting arrested off of music.
Okay. Yeah. No.
So, and then here's another thing. Now, for me, I honestly believe that Allah was preserving me by having me live in Saudi Arabia, because for me, I had a lot of energy and I had a lot of strength. And you know, when you're young and you got a lot of testosterone, and also, alhamdulillah, I'm blessed to not be from a dumb background. So for me, living in Saudi, us watching the things that are in the West, us trying to implement certain things, there was already a level of understanding of what to go for. However, what we didn't understand is, for an example, like when we see some things glamorized in Black American culture, we don't realize how far or how deep certain things were placed upon that society. When I say, like, for an example, for us watching Kenan and Kel, yeah, we don't understand. From my perspective, I never saw Kenan speaking black and Kel speaking white. You know what I mean? I just saw them as they're speaking American. However, what all of us didn't realize behind all that entertainment is how bad Chicago is. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, you know, there was you mentioned Kid. I always thought Cal was a goof. And Kenan was definitely more the streetwise one. He definitely had that, carried himself with a certain type of black swagger, and prior to when Kenan started rocking his dreads and stuff, and but yeah, there was an interesting point. Just wanted to get off on that note was how do you feel now? I guess because I know you said in your experience growing up then in Saudi at the time, there was a bit more pushback to, I guess, certain elements from the West. I mean, how do you feel
major pushback, bro?
Now where you see
for me being in the studio with my J-Fam guys, the reason why I won't put the name down, like at least tell people, is because we took the same penitentiary chances like the people in the West did, except that we had no narcotics involved. For us, it's just the fact that you were making this music and we're coming to the studio knowing that we could get raided at any day.
From art, yeah, which is, in a suppression of art in a sense. But I mean, like nowadays, where you see, I guess they make it more of a play, because as you said, for it to be a place of fun, you see like boxing, you see like WWE, wrestling, things that people could have a problem with and say, well, that's promoting violence, or that's promoting degradation, or that's promoting degenerate behavior and activity. But they seem to be now taking on more of these things from the West, and whether it's just for a payday, some have said it's we've even seen artists, I believe, out there and stuff doing shows and things now. So how do you feel about that change, or do you think it's just a sign of the times and it was just a matter of time that things would change?
To be honest, living in Saudi before and comparing it to now, I would say the Saudis made a mistake 50 years ago. Now, that mistake was, and when I say a mistake, I don't mean it harshly. I mean, they made a mistake with good intention. Okay? So, what had happened was, when they formed the country, like you hear a lot of people talk about Wahhabism and all of that, so on and so forth. I'm going to say, these are people that try, to have a geopolitical presence while still keeping true to themselves in a world that was bigger than them. So therefore, when they made the country, they just threw money at everyone else and said, build this country, and we follow Islam. And we follow it to the point whereby if you want to be here, we're going to be a bit strict about it. Now, here's the thing. I believe that at the time and today, they've realized where they could have gone right and where they could have gone wrong. Because there's been a change in how the peninsula conducted themselves pre their geopolitical presence and post it. Now, pre its geopolitical presence, women had more rights than, let's say, women in the West have today. In its geopolitical presence, yeah, it had to have its stance as, we don't in Saudi, my whole life, you know how in America they pledge allegiance to the flag? In Saudi Arabia, you know what they call the king or the king of the country? They don't call him just the king. They call him the custodian of the two holy mosques. So there's a difference there when you're presenting a world leader, one of the richest world leaders, as the custodian of the two holy mosques. This is important to them. So for them, they tried their best in their way to say, hey, we're trying to preserve what our land and essence is because we don't want it to turn into, for an example, how they turned Egypt into a tourism area. We don't want it to turn into what they turn the Vatican into. It's a tourism thing. This is not a tourism thing. However, I feel like paranoia made them act in a type of way that was detrimental for a couple of years. And I feel that, and I detect that they've realized that. However, the Saudi society themselves, yet I'm talking about the individuals, are still new to these aspects. Because for me, being there in the 90s, doing what I'm doing, that was new then. And then for that short change from the 90s to the 2010s, to them having DJ parties and all that, without actually having the experience of being in the West, is new for them. And right now, some of the Saudi society are actually seeing like, okay, this was cool, but I've never actually seen the full realities of it or how people act in these situations. Like, when we go to the club here, we know how people act when they're drunk and inebriated or so on and so forth. You're dealing with people that have never been to a club at all. So now you're obviously going to have new means of conduct with people that have never left their country, but now you've given them Western things. However, I don't think that's the biggest problem that is with Saudi now. I think the biggest problem that Saudi has is a geopolitical one. With it being the custodian of the two holy mosques and so on and so forth, I feel like recognizing Israel as a state is a detriment to that name. Rather, I feel like, listen, Nicki Minaj and all of them people can come. Yeah, because at the end of the day, the Quran only came to reinforce the gospel or Mosaic thing to the people in the Arabian Peninsula. Human beings are still going to do the 7 deadly sins no matter what they do. It's about if you're going to go to that party. So if I was in Saudi right now, even if they opened a strip club, I'm not going to go to a strip club. I didn't go to a strip club in the West. So I think it's a problem for those that are new to those type of things. But when I say Saudi itself, as the place that I live in, when I used to live in, or in the era of Fahd and Abdullah that I used to live under, recognizing Israel as a state is a problem. This is where I stand. I don't care about the partying and do all that, because at the end of the day, you can it's your choice to go to the club or your choice to go to Mecca. It's half an hour to go to either way. You know what I mean? And for me, as a youth that used to go around with a whole bunch of guys, we'd be dancing and what's his name, doing pop locking it, so on and so forth. People seeing like California culture doing the same thing. Yeah, we were outside doing that. We could get arrested for that too. You know what I mean? But here's the thing: these guys are dancing. They're not out there trying to sell drugs or kill people. You know what I mean? So I don't see an issue with young men being men or young girls being girls. Granted, it's in a safer environment. Saudi provided that safer environment, and also with it providing that safer environment under the umbrella of they're trying to keep as close as they can to the word of the Quran, the last revelation, because we've seen how other people have used their books. We've seen how the Jews have used their books. They've kept it to themselves, and now they don't want to mix with anyone. We've seen how the Christians have divided themselves, and now it's become like the Trinitarian or the not. So for us as Muslims, we have to look and see that, these people were here before us. We have to not make their mistakes as well. We have to be around them. so on and so forth. So that's where I think that Saudi has gone a bit left. It's not the partying and all that. It's the geopolitical stats, because that's what they are, a geopolitical presence. The Saud family that is establishing the control, not the control, the overseeing of the stuff in that region. I don't criticize the Saud family. I know quite a lot of members of different families from the Saudi region have treated me well. I'm just giving people
Yeah, you just give it your experience.
my experience.
Of course. I mean, we do know. I mean, I will disagree with a point you made where you say, well, maybe I disagree with it contextually, because I know you made the inference that, the Judeo-Christians kind of folks have sort of stuck to themselves and kept things to themselves. I would charge Islam with the same thing, because I feel, from my experience, from how I've seen Muslims kind of act, predominantly within the UK, and in the US to an extent, they pretty much stick to themselves and all that stuff too. They don't really mix with other groups, especially those from, certain countries and stuff. They really are very insular and very separatist and stuff as well, and only really count themselves, and they don't really count a lot of other people, from the experiences that I've seen. I want to get to a point that you made, though. I mean, you could come back to that after if you wish, but I want to get to a point because you did have quite a few comments in regards to Israel, and we see what's happening in the world right now. I know, you said something about Israel not being recognized as a state. You don't feel, we've seen...
Saudi recognizing it is more of a problem to me.
We've seen, yeah, no, I'm gonna get to it, bro. We've seen, things that have, really hit a fever pitch recently, sparking from the October 7th attacks with Hamas. And, that I do want to say, obviously, we condemn any kind of violence to anybody. We're not taking any sides of any groups, so we've seen a whole lot of backwards and forwards, and we're talking about displaced peoples, and people have said obviously there was stuff that happened prior to that, and but that has been like the recent axiom to what we've seen going forward. Now many people feel as though there is off the back of this a lot of and we got to tread carefully with this, a lot of spikes in anti-Semitism, a lot of spikes in people showing more of an offensive towards the Jews. So I just wanted to get to that point that you made when you said about you don't feel Israel should be identified as
and a Semite are two different things.
As a no.
This is where I was going to say, because right now the biggest act of anti-Semitism was us as the United Kingdom writing the Baylor Act, that these people that had been attacked from the World War, based on the fact that these 8 countries made the Berlin Act in 1885, to 1888, which then caused them, to swindle Hitler and all of them out of the better deals, having him have Namibia, and him not knowing that uranium was there, led him to then taking Poland and all those other places, causing that world war. That was the biggest act of anti-Semitism, because we do not know how many original Israelites died before the fact that this happened. The biggest act of anti-Semitism was the 1885 Berlin Act, which then led to us doing the 1950 or 1947 Baylor Act. That was the 2 biggest acts of anti-Semitism in the world, and people are trying to fearmonger and guilt trip people into the fact that these people today in this region that is occupied, that they are trying to politically call Israel, are not even Semites.
So you don't think that it should be called Israel? Is that what I'm getting from this? Because I'm not, an expert in that verse.
Who are the real Israelis in the world?
I mean, I've seen I've seen a lot of different pantheon stories going into that. I watched one recently as well. They say, which I've heard them break it down in the past: Isis, Ra, El, 3 deities in one, in a sense, and just the combination of even that. But I don't really like to get hung up too much on the terminologies, but just the I guess the
Okay. Okay. Rather than the terminologies, if Arabic and Hebrew are sister languages, that means they have the same parent.
so why do you think? Well, we can't answer obviously the question for them, but why do these people seemingly not be able to get along? They, as you said, axiomatically they claim the same foundations. They should be. And we're not going to go too much into a tangent on this because obviously we cannot speak for other individuals and we cannot speak for religions and stuff. But you'd think a lot of people say every religion purports to be love thy neighbor and you gotta respect other people's understanding. But in the modern world, sadly, people would charge a lot of the crimes and the hatred that we see off the back of like religions and stuff sometimes as well. But why do you think that is then? Because as you said, if these people are following the same sort of route or claiming the same Abrahamic sort of route, you would think there would be some kind of some balance. And we know it's not like that for everybody. We have seen recent protests across the UK and US, also with multi-faith or multi-groups of people coming out and showing their solidarity for and against different things. And we do know that there is a lot of
It lets me feel happy that I'm not a mainland American. I'm a Jamaican. So like I'm an American islander. However, it shows me that the American people, the narrative that a lot of people have about America is that the American people are lost. Seeing how a lot of the American public has reacted has really given me reassurance that no, the American people are not lost. Whether it's Black America, White America, or foreign America. When I say foreign America, I mean the Americans that are from somewhere else but have 3-4 generations been there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's one thing that I really feel happy about. Because a big reason why I haven't been to the U.S. within recent times since COVID is pre-COVID, I was ready to go. Post-COVID, it seems like there is an implementing agenda happening in the U.S. That's just my take.
Okay.
However, the public are not the same as the government. And this is where I started to realize that the difference between, this is just my observation, the difference between the Americans that are there looking at their badge as opposed to those that are there indigenously. So now I'm trying to see the different narratives. So when we were talking about narratives, a lot of the time, when I say we, those who are not trying to oppress others don't have a stream to conduct a narrative that people will fall under. That is that problem.
Yeah, good point.
You know? I'm sorry to say it like that, and I'm sorry to really heat up your line right now with what I'm saying. If anything's bugging, but like, here's the thing: if they're that great and they were going to do something, you couldn't stop it anyway.
You talking in context of America or just anybody in general?
Anybody. Listen, America's not going to stay the greatest. Here's one thing. Somebody said something. Human beings will keep fighting with each other until something external comes where they all have to come together. And this is where I'm like, listen, let's get on that way of thinking before it happens. Because that's when anarchy will actually happen.
Yeah, a great deluge or something. I mean, I think it would potentially come from outside forces, from something higher and greater, as opposed to
that's exactly how I'm thinking right now. Because you know what, my father said something to him. God bless both my parents. He said, "Look, Iblis, Satan. There's some things human being will do. Iblis will walk out and say, I ain't doing that shit."
Well,
think about that. There's some things human being will get up and do. Satan say, yeah, I'm gonna get out. I'm not doing with this shit.
Yeah, well, man have definitely made their fair share of bad decisions and some good too. I do attest to a point where I don't personally feel as though with all the separatists and different groups and different races and different genes. I know that's a part of the world because, you know, as vast as the world is in every aspect, whether it's the animal kingdom, the vegetable, mineral kingdom, there's a multitude of variety which is also expressed in humankind and mankind also. However, one thing that definitely separates us from the former would be the concept of us having our own mind to think on a certain type of level, a power, a certain reasoning faculty that we have. But within that reasoning faculty, it can go either way because we have the ability to question things. So within that, it can, you know, it creates a whole new paradox to where man can actually question things that are happening to them, going on around them, so on and so forth. And I think within that, and you know, the choices and the different groups and the separation and the different races and just having that mental power, it does unfortunately, as we see, lead to a lot of ignorance, violence, volatility, and so on. I mean, taking all that, is this the type of elements that you put into your music and speak about?
Well, my music. Okay, for this goes off on a bit of a tangent. My music, as of today, yeah, didn't wasn't necessarily planned and thought out as well as it's presented. So, at a time, yeah, I was not confident with rapping. Yeah, I was writing, but I wasn't confident with rapping. Why? Because as an individual, as a House of Fulani, we stick to rules. So one of the rules in hip hop was, hey, don't be a rapper if you can't freestyle. Okay, so that's a big reason as to why I became a producer.
Okay.
Yeah, so I used to write. Now, a lot of the times for me, I was a creative writer in school, but I wasn't a rapper. One of my classmates, yeah, he was the first person I ever saw do a freestyle or anything. God blessed him in order to be in California, and every single rapper that we listened to as a kid, he's been in the booth with, and he's rapped with and hung out with, and like you know when God blesses you for a journey, that's this kid. You know, I mean, I went from him in person. I went from seeing him to impersonating Snoop Dogg, yeah, on the phone to guys in Saudi, to being in the booth and in the room with him.
Nice.
Like that's a real thing. I can really say that I saw that happen. Like for me, for us,
That was inspirational
those
for
things
you.
in the West is like watching Pink Panther. You'll never see them. No, I've seen that. This was my boy.
I mean, anything's possible when you put your mind to it, man. And that's one thing. Just you know, going back to what we were saying, the power of the mind and the faculty, we have the power and the ability granted to us from the Most High to manifest as we do truly wish. And if you're really passionate towards something, and you know, you work harder, you dedicated, these things can happen. Even myself personally, I'm not gonna name drop, but the amount of people that I've met, done work with, came into contact with, that were people that were on other sides of the world that, you know, for the most parts, they had no knowledge of who I was, albeit me having a knowledge of them, for them fundamentally being a bigger person within the industry. But that manifestation and that passion and just being real about stuff, it can definitely open those doors and make things happen and stuff for you, you know. And I think it's important to relay that message because that's what inspires other people, you know. And there's some youngsters out there, you know, we spoke quite a few things on this about just creativity and just expression and how important that can be to an individual. So I think you know, those passionate subjects and areas that a lot of us have with, you know, music and the arts and stuff like that, it's great when you can see examples of it explored in a way where, as you said, it reaches a height where, you know, you can look and say, hey, you know, I was with that person or I know that person because, you know, quite frankly, especially with the saturation of everything nowadays, for most people, those opportunities, even though they're possible, they can be few and far between. And that's not because we're trying to condemn anybody or we're trying to suppress anybody's abilities, but that's because there's a lot of things that happen when you're on these endeavors and you know, just real life. So hanging in there sometimes is hard enough for people to persevere and keep moving forward, you know, past difficulties and
Well,
setbacks.
I was gonna say You know, there was two things I was gonna bring up.
Adam.
One, you remember when you were talking about the Arabs and the peninsula and that situation? I was going to add. I was watching something yesterday from the Bayina Institute. It's a channel that really focuses on teaching you the Quran from Arabic to English, but it's still engulfed in the Arabic essence. And he said that the Arabic language, there is rootage in it having origins in the hieroglyphs of Egypt. And there was a note that two sheikhs said. They said every chapter in the Quran that mentions Moses has a letter that's the letter Tha, and the letter Tha looks like a snake. Yeah, that's in a circle with a tail extended out, like one of the hieroglyphs. And he said that was a point. And this is where it's like,
I believe that was the great snake Apep.
Here's what I'm trying to allude to people. Islam and these Abrahamic faiths have been presented to us in the wrong way. The same way they've given us the wrong narratives of history, we've all got the wrong version of something. Now, I'm not saying everything is wrong. I'm saying generationally, each generation gave us their point and their view of understanding, and we had different versions of people forcing those kinds of ways based on insecurity.
Oh yeah, I mean definitely. I think we still get a lot of that to this day, and I mean
We will, and we will get it. It's a thing that will never end, bro.
well, that's why I
That's
said
where
it's
it
a
is.
part.
That's where me and you have to have these conversations from different
It co-
backgrounds and get to a conclusion where other human beings, whether from the same or different background,
Well,
yeah,
it coincides with the human condition, and as you said,
exactly.
rightly so. There have been things. I can get into some of a history or scholarship or theology, and different things, and I don't claim to be an expert on some of these things. Now, I have heard in some studies that yes, some fundamental stuff was retrieved from Egypt and old Egyptology texts and stuff, and so we know. I mean, the history of this world is quite vast, and in terms of understanding, sometimes things have been relayed to different people in different ways and different groups. I'm a huge fan of the philosopher and mathematician, also a great logician in his own right, Bertrand Russell. And when Bertrand was alive, he said the history of wars.
I'm not aware of this person. Let me get a pen and paper so I can write his name down so I can find it. Excuse my ignorance. One sec. What's his name again?
Bertrand Russell. Oh, we seem to have lost connection, guys. I mean, let's see if he calls back. Okay, bear with us, guys.
Hello? I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, no, I just had, you said you was going to get a pen and then it just disconnected.
Yeah. No, I'm just going to get a pen right now so I can write this individual's name.
Okay, yeah, but Bertrand Russell, I mean, definitely I'd encourage you to check out some of his philosophy and stuff. And, he was very opposed to a lot of things that was happening in the world in his time, but he wrote about things in an analytical point of view, just looking at how things can be taught as opposed to how things are taught to us, even in the time now where we're looking at the wars. And the quote I was going to quote from him, where he said, the history of wars should be a small part of what is taught. History should be taught as the history of the rise of civilizations and not as the history of this nation or that nation, So I thought...
I second that. I don't know this man, but I agree with that statement.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I would just brought it up because it kind of coincide with, I feel, the point you was making and stuff. Just in terms of how we'd be on this quest to, we're all trying to seek and gain, knowledge and information.
Here's one thing that the same man that said that every chapter in the Quran that mentions Moses has this that starts with the letter Tha or has Tha in it. I was gonna say this: human being needs to realize, irregardless of religion and doctrine or ritual, yeah, is that his relationship with his Creator started before his birth, started before the existence of Adam on earth, and started before his existence, before the existence of planet Earth. Like his existence, his presence, his oneness with his Creator has been there since the second his Creator made his soul with him. So this is one thing that people that nowadays in modern day society, they care about falling into doctrines rather than falling into holidity with themselves. So this is where I haven't found this wasn't something I grew up on knowing like so. This is something I've alhamdulillah got to cultivate through experience and now get to say, so that a young person gets to walk his life with it. Because I wish I knew this as a kid. I'd have probably been in the positions I would have wanted to be had I known these things that would have fortified me as an individual as a child.
Yeah, it's like that saying. They say, "If only I had known now what I know now. If only I had known then what I know now." Yeah.
Yeah.
To that.
But here's the thing: you know how to not be a hater is teach a person now what he doesn't have to learn later.
Yep. I mean, definitely, wisdom has got to be spread, and I do feel as though with some people, they have different. I don't want to say levels or different frequencies, different. Some say different levels of consciousness. I do believe everyone has the same yield of potential to, in different degrees and elements. But when we look at that, it's sort of like, especially in life, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine, and his nephew had passed away, and we're just conceptualizing and speaking on the concept of death and certain.
My condolences to that man and his family.
Yeah, definitely condolences. T. Judah will pass that on, and I know he'll listen at some point. And
was he a young kid?
I believe he was fairly young. I mean, he wasn't, he was middle aged. He wasn't like an old person, and I mean that was one of the
in Islam, they say anyone who dies under the age of 40 is a tragedy.
I mean, this is one of the reasons we got into this conversation, because what me and him, because we're looking at it and we're saying, just like you had made the suggestion of the existence of creation. So that's where we started going from that into the roots of creation, because I know a lot of people in this world, and I mean it with all, due respect. As much as I don't agree with certain things from a lot of pantheons, I won't be outright disrespectful. But we know, just like you're familiar with some of the teachings of the NOI and and the nation of gods. Come again?
Oh.
Hello?
I was asking what pantheon? A pantheon, just so I can know what that is properly. Excuse my ignorance.
Yeah, no, we're gonna have to get you a dictionary and start clearing some of these words, which is very important, because L. Ron Hubbard, he taught that when we do read things or we do go through stuff, it is good practice for us to have like a dictionary on hand to clear.
This is why I ask what the word is if I don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, that's.
I don't want the person to feel that they're giving me the whole thing when they're not, and I want to give them the respect of, hey, I didn't get what you said. Please tell me what that is.
Yeah, no, a pantheon. So as I was saying, LRH, just a little plug for LRH, and he did suggest that, which is a good practice. But anyway, when we're talking something like a pantheon, it is just an example of something that is collective, but of a particular type of collection. So if we're talking like a pantheon religiously, then we're talking like a set of religions, a set of mythology, a set of gods, a set of tradition and stuff. So we're talking the the whole panoply. It's not just the singular aspect. No, well, good, but I've kind of my point being, I've even mentioned it because, as I said, we was just looking at creation, and then we say, okay, well, some people believe in a mystery God where it's okay, people die, they go to heaven, and they, somebody dies at 6 years old. What happens to them? Do they go as a 6 year old? Somebody dies at 30 year old. Do they go as a 30 year old? Somebody dies at 90 years old. Do they go as a 90 year old? Do they, metamorphosize to some kind of form in between? Because as you just said, or even suggested in the Islamic sect, then from that teaching, that you would say it's a tragedy if somebody dies young. So if somebody dies young, some may look at it like that, and some may look at it, oh well, they've gone to heaven, and they're gonna be, I don't know if they feel they're gonna be at that age or grow for that age. Now I mention all of that because it's similar to what you said, just in terms of the real roots and sources of creation in that aspect where it's eternal, and it can't really be all the way justified sometimes by our human thinking, because it's something that kind of supersedes the humanity as we know it on this physical plane. So it's sort of like, as you said, that creation spark or element, you were sort of driving that, did exist prior to you even taking this body here, and will exist afterwards. So the body here, as I was sort of alluding to, is somewhat of a shallower vehicle. So it can be hard sometimes to discern that, because you could look at somebody who's of a certain age, as I was saying, and feel, oh well, but that's their body is at this certain age. Once they die.
As a kid, it was hard for me to discern certain things, though my belief was there in the one creator. However, talking to me about third dimension, fifth dimension, I'd be like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Oh, of course.
Now as an adult, I understand.
Well, that's why they say in the scripture, man. They say in the Bible, milk for babes and meat for strong men, because at the end of the day, as I said, we're still bound and encased in these human bodies, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, you could have lived, whether you believe that or not, 50,000 lifetimes before and had been at an exalted level, but once you enter back into this realm as a child, you still have to go through some of those same processes. Where we haven't seen that miracle child that comes out and knows everything. So
I really like what you just said there. It just made the cogs in my head just start moving. Yeah, I like what you said there.
Yes, my brother, man. So no, that's it. We shooting the breeze and looking at these outlooks and things. And as you even said, this is what's important, because what we see in the world now, unfortunately and sadly, is a lot of fighting and feuding. And instead of people coming together on rational levels, and I remember the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it years ago, way back then, and he said, why can't people come together and reason as men, whether they agree or disagree on certain things, as opposed to
because they attack manhood,
or these wars and stuff we see happening now. No, I don't mean, we know there's different cases.
Not to answer
holistically speaking.
Was it Elijah? Did you say Farrakhan or Elijah Muhammad?
Yeah, Elijah.
Okay, so though I disagree with some of his teachings, he did teach something, so I will give him his respect. He's, what's his name? It's because there is an active attack on manhood on every level. There's an attack on manhood.
Speak on that.
That is why these, right, there was a lady I was watching, she was speaking on Streets TV, the brother's name's also Alfonso, and what she said is, brothers are falling into the curses of Cain. She was speaking about the brothers in California that are in situations of gangs and so on and so forth. She said brothers are falling into the curses of Cain, and now you have to realize the enemy probably knows our books better than we do, and we have to remember, when they've given you the narrative that you are not even a Semite, you're black. Yeah, or you're not even an Israelite. You're not one of the 12 tribes. Well, all of these, as a Muslim, we are taught, even though people would say that if Islam is an Arab's religion, well, then Allah told the Arabs, go look at what all of these black guys were doing because I blessed them. Yeah, and they kept killing each other. They kept doing all this stuff to each other. And now here's the thing. That was us before doing it to ourselves. We have an external enemy right now that is making sure that we don't know the narrative properly. Right now, as a Caribbean African Muslim who grew up in Saudi, now understanding what I now know is when the Arab is talking about the Jew that he doesn't like, he's talking about these Jews today. Yeah. When I look at the book and when Allah says, do not be like the Jews or do not be like Pharaoh, he's telling me, do not be like these black folk that are blessed but turned it bad. That's what you should look at. For a black kid, that's what I tell them, look at the Quran as. That's what you should look at it. This is an account of a whole bunch of black people, yeah, that were the sons of well, from Abraham, and then the 12 sons of Jacob, and all of those in Egypt, because everyone loves Egyptology. Bro, this is a story of black people right now. And people, Dr. James Smalls, I watch a lot of his videos, and he was like, what's up with people? If your grandma is black, you're black. And they were saying that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his grandmother was black. So even if he was Arab and it wasn't necessarily the same lineage that came from Abraham, he's one of both.
That's interesting. I mean, I've never heard that teaching. I have heard some people infer, towards race. I'd say, he was a black man, or some say he wasn't a black man. Some say he was a white man. I've heard even the nation say, he was a white man. So, and then I've heard, some people say different. But I know, we don't really. I'm gonna be honest, even myself. I definitely take a very what some would call pro-black stance, but I'm not against any other individual, group or collective. I want peace for all beings on earth, and to me, it don't really matter where you're from and your background. We got a saying, every brother ain't a brother and every other ain't a other, and it ain't where you from, it's how you come, because sometimes the enemy can be coming in, as you said, from those black devils too.
Yeah,
so we see that too.
Their enemies are their Israelites. So when Pac said the biggest issue for black people is black people, it's been that for a time.
Well, I think that's
look at our books.
I think that's a issue of humanity, like I was aforementioned.
Yeah,
I think the issue is now we've got so many delineation of the human being and kind, and you've got even going into the transhuman era where we got so this isn't going back to a stage where it was just as much we could theorize and people could say, originally everywhere was black and everybody was black and da. So as we would say, okay, by process then that would mean the people then that entered into barbarism and certain stages against each other and so on and so forth would have been black. And we studied the condition of the planet and human mind and human nature, and we do see that, so we know there would have been, that's a constant, there's always got to be that human against human sort of thing, whether it be from one group. But I think now, because we've got so many different types of human, and that's just me using this terminology, which we're bound by is English terrestrial terms, but there's so many different types of human, I say, and I think that's what it's become. So we're dealing with so much separation in that aspect where, these micro groups, so to speak, and I use that term loosely because some of them aren't micro in the amount of people that they have in their collective, but these things have some application, I think, now with what we see. So a lot of those issues, as you said, have gone from it being, in some cases just committed from one group amongst each other to, now one group amongst this group and this group amongst that group. And ultimately, there ain't much different between them. It's like some people in the diaspora, when they see what's happening even in Israel and Palestine and those places now, and they just see white folk regardless, or they see Eurasians or European Asian type people. They, that's what they see, and they see them as all the same in that aspect. And some may say as a human race we're all the same. There's only one race. The human race is a great quote that a lot of people
May I
often
say something?
yeah, I'm just wondering that they
I
often.
wanted to say thank you. May God bless you because you said something that, remember in our last conversation, I said, we live in the times of idolatry, and now the idol is your passport. No, I changed that. We live in the days of idolatry, and the idol is your ideology.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why we fight too much, because now we've taken the fact that we've taken half of the aspect that we're doing the right thing. Now we're trying to be God and implement it on people without letting them cultivate it themselves collectively in a particularly smart way. Because that's what we're here for. See, a human being is meant to be a barbarian.
Now you're onto something, because that's how it was in the old. It was reportedly. It
Yeah.
was in the old days and times, especially you aforementioned Egypt and certain, not so much religious systems but mystery systems. Just like I gave you the quote from the scripture of milk for babes and meat for strong men.
Yeah.
It was also quoted within the Hermetic principles and philosophy that can be attributed not just to ancient Greece and Egypt or antiquity, Thoth or Hermes Trismegistus, whatever they want to define that being as, but the lips of wisdom are closed, but to the ears of understanding. Now, these axioms, maxims, and terms, there's a lot of these things that were coded and changed and put in different forms and stuff, but ultimately these systems were there for development and spiritual development. One thing with society, it does like to teach, like man is just an animal. Well, we know that is not a fact. We know
that is a European narrative from
we
certain doctrines. I
of
don't
course
think every narrative around the world has that consensus.
I know I'm using it to illustrate a point where we know that is not.
Sorry, my apologies.
That is not the case. So we know we're dealing with the spiritual being and spiritual element and aspect. So as I was saying, these systems prior, as you quite made a good point in reference to, were designed for that progressive development to bring you down the line, where you would get, as you developed, you would get more information. As you became more conscious to a point of understanding, like you said, when you was young, you used to look at death a certain way, or when you're, not to say you don't feel the emotion or whatever the same way now, but your understanding has grown. In those old systems in Egypt and certain places, you would have then went into the mystery schools, and you would have went into a different point where then they built onto that once you were ready to get that higher aspect of information. Now, a lot of things were used as just axioms to illustrate points, which were further demonized by people who lacked the understanding themselves and thought, oh, wow,
Yes,
how can
very much so.
how can this be that or that be like this? But as you kind of made a point to, that's how things would be more healthy and conducive to a developing society and human being if they did have that line to go up, as opposed to, as you said, somebody just imprinting their own understanding of an ideology onto them without the actual tools for them to understand what's going on.
Yeah. No, you I don't disagree with anything that you just said.
No, I'm just adding on to the point you made, but truth is truth, and it's like you said, there is a lot of that happening now where people are, being shrouded in their ideologies and stuff, and I mean, there's so many different ways we can look at that. I mean, I just want to, before we wind down, get back to some music. I know you've got some music projects and stuff out now. Is there anything that we can expect from you in the near future?
Well, inshallah, yes. I mean, right now, it's been a long time. It's been a long time coming. My first project was 2011, and I want to say thank you to everyone that was on about that online who listened to the project. It was my first project. A lot of the people that were around are doing their own thing now, and I would say it's my best project. It was one of my best projects, and I think it is my best project. So thank you. Hearing the comment of having Arabic sounds was amazing. I wasn't going for it, but thank you. Do you know
Well,
what I
we
mean?
got to thank just that to cut you. We got to thank Mixer Reviews for that. He our lead analyst and writer over at badonline.com. So definitely big up to Mixer. Big up yourself every time, man.
Thank you, much appreciated, much appreciated. Hopefully he gets to review some bigger artists and we get noticed for it as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, to be honest, you can check out. He has reviewed a plethora of artists, small and big. Andy has had a lot of feedback, some good, some bad. Because as you can anticipate, not all artists.
It's his own take. No one can critique him on his own take. It's his own take.
You mentioned big artists. I'm not gonna put nobody's names on blast, but we have had some that have taken exception to some reviews and stuff also. So yeah, they have been received. And the thing is, in this day and time, to be honest, I always
success to you and that man.
I always say people want to if you're writing about somebody, they got to check it out a lot of the times. Especially a lot of artists, I think people have the misconception that some of these artists, because they have huge platforms in some cases, or followings, or notoriety in that aspect, that they're not checking out for smaller things, but they do, especially if it's pertaining to themselves. Most of them are quite egocentric.
Everyone has insecurities, no matter how big you are.
They're human beings, bro. Human beings.
Yeah, true. So about projects, yes. I do have a couple of projects that inshallah will come out. There are some projects that I've written or I have planned out years before I was as good as I am a producer. There's some beats that I've made templates to back in like 2010 that I'm like, okay, I'm ready to jump on this now, and so on and so what my main focus is right now is trying to elevate my brand a bit more. I've been a bit selfish, yeah, but I've been the wrong kind of selfish. So before, it was more so just for me being with the group that I was with, and then I left the group for a period of time because industry stuff happens, politics, different companies wanting to just use your name but not give you the same credit. And for me, I felt like, I would admit, I came from an aspect of wanting to be in the streets. However, in Saudi, it didn't allow it to be so. So that energy was still there. So I'm still a bit of a feisty kid, yeah, or a feisty teenager, or just a feisty young man. So I wasn't ready to stand for certain things some of the homies would, just to get further industry-wise. Though they did get their success. So I left the band, but not the group, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally, man. And one thing we definitely respect is artists, and not just artists, individuals who are willing to stand on their own laurels and principles, especially in a world of entertainment where we know sometimes you can get a lot further if you do march to the beat of somebody else's drum. So one thing, we definitely salute you for marching to the beat of your own drum.
Yeah, and you know what? Though I even left, I don't think, I would have had the same energy without having been around them as well. This is why, for me, for them, I don't know what happened between some of the homies when I wasn't there. They don't champion the group as much. For me, in absence, I champion the group, but let's just say amongst the group, I'm the pushy one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So everyone's got different angles of how they represented the group, and a lot of us were rubbed the wrong way by us looking at each other. Let's just say, to go back to some of the points we were saying, a lot of us are the keys to the other person. Yeah, and sometimes the other person doesn't know you're the key to them, and sometimes the other person knows you're the key that helps them and you're not aware of it. A lot of that happened between the group, and sometimes that caused frustration, and even sometimes it caused people to not be friends anymore.
Oh yeah. Well,
you know what I mean? So for me, what I appreciate about my group is, for me, I used to be a wannabe Crip, right? Until one of the guys actually went to Vernon and all that, and the guy that he met is a millionaire. He's on Forbes and so on and so forth. Shout out to Thirsty P. Yeah, so we were just running around. You know, boys will be boys. Do you know what I mean? J Fam, when I joined Jitta Fam, it really, you know what instinctively came to my head? I had a conversation with one of the guys. He's a businessman now. He said, "Esbati, do you remember how we made the whole thing?" I said, "How?" He said, "You know we called a meeting, right?" I said, "We called a meeting." He said, "Yeah." And I'm 13 at this time, and I had people in their 20s. So I joined JFam at 16. As soon as I joined JFam, I said, "Hey, you gotta hide all that street shit, because how are people gonna like you if you're a thug?"
Mm.
That's exactly, no, for me, I told you, like, if I'm in your corner, I'm in your corner, bro. I was influenced. You know what I mean? So if I'm in your corner, I'm in your corner type thing. Yeah. So for me, that was the weaning out of all of that thuggery, being with JFam. Yeah. So for me, I was like, all right, I'm not as tough as Tukey, and I'm not going to just hit nobody for no reason, so on and so forth. I'm just going to try and collect a bunch of black people, and we gonna wear blue, and if somebody racist tries us, we're going to do something. But if not, we're just cool. You know what I mean? This is my warped mind of thuggery from what we're seeing. And I have to be honest with myself, because this is a part of the story, and you've given me a platform. Do you know what I mean? So when I joined JFam, I was more so, okay, what can I do, that is productive to the group? Because before I was unproductive, you know what I mean? Though I wanted to be a part of a group. Growing up in the 90s, it's a community-based culture back in the 90s and 80s and so on and so forth. So for me, I was always creatively writing, but to be honest, JFam, being 16 amongst a bunch of these other men, I'm the youngest in the group. The oldest in the group is 30. You know what I mean? So going from a situation that was semi-street to this situation where it's like, no, you gotta actually put your weight together. I said, I can't just be a guy who writes bars and raps. I gotta do something more. And that's why I became a producer. Yeah, so for me, I have to give those guys that credit, even though the group isn't together and so on and so forth. I would say, especially for my mother and so on and so forth, JFam kept me off the streets because I wanted to do something productive. I was trying to find myself, you know what I mean? Now, being the 32-year-old that I am, I've kept a whole bunch of people off the streets being in music, even if it's just one time. I've had guys come to me who was like, yeah, man, if this guy was doing something, I'm talking about in England. Yeah, these are thugs. These are actual people that are let's just say, you don't want to be on the wrong side of them, but they come to me, yeah, and they show me respect, and it's almost like, you know, when you go to the altar and you confess, it's like they come and confess to me. I'm like, I'm no one to confess to, but I understand their energy, and I really like the fact that I was in Saudi and I was able to cultivate this passion for music and this passion for the culture that the FBA's made and other people had made. Yeah, and I'm able to be a medium to some youth that are not just in England and other places as well, because I don't go to them with a judgmental spirit, because I look at them and feel like I could have been them if I was in their situation, but I was blessed to be all the way in Africa / the Arabian Peninsula. You know what I mean? So for me, I've had the experience of having real gang members take shahada on the street and in jail when I walked the prison time. So for me, I have to be real with my situation and say, first off, I want to thank God for my existence, and then thank God for my parents and the cultivation of them saying, if you know how to do something, or if someone does something good for you, do good to them. So that is really my basis of my character. That is what both my parents, let's say if they never disagree, if they disagreed on everything in the world together, that is one thing those two agreed on.
Nice. Well, we appreciate that, and definitely peace to moms and pops, and
salute. Thank you. Much
and
appreciated.
yep. I mean, we definitely got to have you back on because, you know, there's endless amount of conversation that we can have, you know, especially in terms of building. We're slightly
I'd
running
love
out of
to be
time.
back. You all are some very, very intelligent people. I'd love to be around people that make me bring the best out of myself and make me get to a higher level, because I honestly believe that I need to, with what I know now, all I know is that I need to know more.
Man, this thing infinite. Hopefully, you know, we'll see. We maybe get you on a panel one of the days with T Judah and stuff. Where can folks find you on social media before we wind out?
Okay, on MafftheConcept, Math the Concept, on every platform. On Instagram, you put official Math the Concept. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Bandcamp, just maththeconcept.bandcamp.com. You can also find me on Spotify and all the other platforms, but my discography is on my Bandcamp. You can buy or you can download for free directly to me. I like to have this whole sense of ownership, but there is some of my work on Spotify. I have a project with a brother from Georgia, the state of Georgia, Skywalker, a very, very intelligent, smart lyricist, and just a very, very amazing individual.
Dope. Well, we'll definitely check those out, and we'll get some links posted in the description. Obviously, you guys can check out some of your music reviews also on badonline.com. Do let us know your thoughts in the comments as well. Also, any listeners, this is going to be broadcasted onto Spreaker also as we bring show over there. So you boy Fonzie Neutron, definitely Math the Concept. Been a pleasure having you on the platform. Can't wait to have you back on, my brother.
I thank you for this opportunity, and I hope Allah bless all the listeners, you and your endeavors and your families, and thank you for the opportunity.
My brother.